World War II was a time of extreme difficulties and agony for millions around the globe, with women bearing an especially heavy burden. As males left their homes to fight in battles overseas, females were forced into roles that involved supporting their families and maintaining economic stability. They stepped up as nurse practitioners and factory laborers, jobs typically held by men before this period, ensuring progress continued while confronting tremendous challenges on several fronts simultaneously. Additionally, they also worked tirelessly on agricultural lands, where previously male workers had occupied positions which required physical strength, but now changed hands and passed on to them, the female workforce. The emotional toll this took on women was tremendous. Many had to say goodbye to their husbands, fathers, brothers, and sons, knowing that they may never see them again. They had to endure the fear and uncertainty that came with the war, not knowing what the outcome would be. Women also had to deal with the prejudice and discrimination that was still prevalent in society at the time. Despite their hard work and dedication, they were often not given the same respect and recognition as their male counterparts. At a time when the separation of gender roles was quite clear, women were not allowed to perform outside their socially accepted roles under any circumstances. Initially, the government, businesses, and society as a whole were unwilling to accept women in positions that should have been filled by males. They thought women lacked skills and strength, but time was of the essence. Both the country's army and the Allies need weapons, food, and services, all of which were in limited supply due to a lack of personnel. Thus, those who opposed using women to satisfy these requirements had no alternative but to swallow their old-fashioned pride. Every area of the economy required employees to serve important functions. Women were permitted to work in sectors that had previously only employed males, such as truck driving and engineering. In addition to shift work, hundreds of thousands of women served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard in non-combat duties. In addition, approximately 3 million women volunteered for the Red Cross. The bulk, however, opted to work in industry, and millions were engaged in durable goods industries modified to produce the weapons, aircraft, trucks, equipment, and ships required by the country to win the war. During World War II, around 350,000 women joined the armed services and served both domestically and internationally, in addition to working in factories and other home front jobs. Influenced by the success of British women in service and encouraged by First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and women's groups, General George Marshall supported the idea of creating a women's service branch in the Army. As a result, Congress established the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps in May 1942, which was later upgraded to the Women's Army Corps with full military status. The WW2s, as they were known, held more than 200 non-combatant jobs, both in the United States and overseas. By 1945, the number of WW2s had grown to over 100,000, including 6,000 female officers. Initially, the jobs that women were assigned in most countries during World War II did not involve any life-threatening risks. However, the Soviet Union was the only country that allowed women to participate in both the back and front lines of the war effort. In the Soviet Union, women were integrated into the army as full-fledged members, rather than serving as mere auxiliaries. Over 1,000 women served as snipers during World War II, with approximately 12,000 confirmed enemy kills. The most prominent female sniper was Lyudmila Pavlichenko. In addition to snipers, women also held other risky positions, such as in tank divisions. Alexandra Samusenko rose to the rank of captain in the tank division. Australia passed the National Security Act in 1939, allowing women to be recruited into industrial jobs. Within 5 years of its implementation, salaried female employees increased from 644,000 to 855,000. The peculiarity was that many females abandoned their previous typically feminine roles and took up tasks generally reserved for men. After World War II ended, though, several ladies were obliged to return back to these old occupations they left behind during the war era. Women had a variety of functions assigned across Germany amid World War II, including serving as auxiliaries within army branches like Navy or Air Force. Besides, some even served combat duty on par with male soldiers instead of being confined entirely indoors. However, majority plodded through concentration camp guard duties, only while Nazi-occupied Poland saw an opposite trend amongst her valiant-hearted daughters who displayed courage beyond limits, whether undertaking espionage missions, secretly delivering messages, fighting alongside comrades directly against invaders themselves, or playing medic helping wounded fellow freedom fighters. Wanda Goetz's heroic acts gained recognition, resulting in highest decorations bestowed upon her by state officials, albeit posthumously. Later Retribution Day came. Fighting in hostile terrain while facing frequent life-threatening danger is certain to cause excessive amounts of stress. If they don't find a way out, the tension will build up and wreak havoc on the troops' psyche, impeding their effectiveness on the front lines. The leadership of the military during World War II recognized that soldiers stationed near cities and towns would be tempted by vices such as alcohol, gambling, and the presence of women. While these temptations may seem normal, the real concern was the spread of venereal diseases among soldiers. This was particularly concerning for the Germans since, throughout the time of occupation in France alone, the local ladies disabled more troops than the French army in 1940. As a result, the Wehrmacht created restrictions that had to be obeyed in order for their uniformed personnel to benefit from these services. 2 controlled institutions were established where the troops might find females who were permitted to do such tasks. Some were paid specialists in both Germany and the nations they conquered. Others were weak character women who chose this duty over forced work. And finally, there were the prisoners of war. It is important to note that most of the soldiers recruited during World War II did so voluntarily. However, there were reports of soldiers engaging in dishonorable behavior. To spend time with women, soldiers had to present a pass verifying their good health. They were also required to provide personal information for quick identification in case of infection. Soldiers were provided with protection and disinfectant spray, which they had to use on the women before engaging in any activity, under the threat of punishment if they did not comply. The responsibility for the health of both the women and the soldiers rested with the area commander and medical officer. Despite all precautions, between 1939 and 1943, 250,000 cases of venereal diseases were reported due to the inability to control every soldier who disobeyed orders or sought out women without proper sanitation. Several Allied soldiers saw a significant number of women who were being punished by the French for horizontal collusion with the enemy. This was the place where women were publicly humiliated and mercilessly punished for sleeping with the enemy. It is believed that 20,000 women had their heads shaved in public shows known as the ugly carnivals, and these ladies were treated inhumanly and suffered terribly as a result. As the Germans captured and seized large areas of land in different countries, they settled and occupied the areas. Quickly, they got themselves comfortable and then started looking for women to either court, take advantage of, or treat terribly. There were many women across occupied lands who took to the Germans and who decided to sleep with the German soldiers. At the time, there was a trend in the German army where many French girlfriends of German soldiers would walk around in their boyfriend's uniform, and pictures of this do exist. Conquering troops, particularly those of significant military rank, had a lot to offer a woman. They could promise her a future in which they would marry and then return to Germany to start a family after the war. Several women fell in love with and married their German partners, and they accompanied their husbands wherever they went, even through harsh terrain, and some even joined them inside prison camps. Over 200,000 kids were born in France to German fathers and French mothers, and this trend repeated itself wherever the German army moved. 12,000 infants were born in Norway, while 900 kids born to German fathers were registered in the Channel Islands. Nevertheless, when the war turned against the Germans and they were driven back and forced to give land, The liberators and elements of the resistance went to great efforts to punish those women whom they suspected of cooperating with the Germans and having slept with the enemy. All wars are plagued by unethical and immoral acts disguised as ideals to defend. War is the darkest abyss into which humanity has plunged, and it represents the most heinous crimes against our own species. The times we live in serve as a reminder of how hazardous our selfishness may be to the world and all of its people. What kind of horror stories will be told in the future, and what part will our mothers, sisters, and daughters play in them? Whatever comes next, History in One will be there to tell you about it.